Hello everyone, this is Clay with DigiFactors Animation. I hope everyone had a wonderful New Year's. Mine was okay, but I hope yours was better. Okay. Today I just want to talk to you, um, just chat a little bit and tell you how I do things, okay, and tell you how I made the set for camping with Bigfoot. Okay, it's a camping in the forest. I had a lot of compliments on that, and I'd figure I'd tell you how I made that set. I'm not going to go in every detail, so I'm not going to bring up uh, any other softwares, maybe but one on what I do. Okay, especially I'm not going to bring Milkshape in, but I will tell you how I did things in Milkshape, and then I'm going to show you or explain to you how I do my character acting and how I put everything together, how I separate my timeline into different clips, video clips, instead of just r- rendering one long segment. You know, I'm going to show you all that. I'm going to explain to you all that. So with that said, let me turn off my title screen, and now we're in Movie Zoo. I have Movie Zoo brought up here, so and this is the set that I use, and I'm still using it because I got to finish the second half, which will be sometime next month where I'll start shooting again on this. I just have a lot of obligation in real life and to my other channel that I have, and more things to do for DigiFactor. Okay. Okay. Now the set here. Um, Let me go up, and if you look, you can see there's really not that much there uh, to the set at all. Okay, so what I done was I created some backdrops with different backgrounds on it. So I have a backdrop here behind this backdrop behind that backdrop. Okay, and this backdrop here is a drawing of a river that pretty much tried to match the river along the way here to make it all make the river look like it's extending on the way out. Now it doesn't look like that in in bird's eye view here. It doesn't look that way at all. And you got all this empty space around it and that. But this is the idea of using backdrops. So if I go back down, and you'll watch and you'll notice how everything blends together to create one big happy scenery. So it just creates one big world. That is the effect of using backdrops. Instead of having to keep creating more assets like uh, 3D objects to lay back in there in the background back there, and it taking up more memory, causing your computer to slow down, when a movie could do a crash, everything will be a little laggy or like that. That's because you're using so many uh, polygons into your set. Okay, so with that method of using backdrops surrounding your area is better. If you do it right, and as you can see, it all just comes together. Okay, it all just comes together. And if I move up like this way, about halfway up like that, and it just looks like that the trees are going way back there. Okay, they all blend together. It's like painting a canvas. You're painting in sceneries, and you're starting off with the background, and you're working your way up to the foreground, the middle ground, and then the foreground, and giving it the illusion that the world is bigger than what it looks on flat canvas. So it's pretty much like this. It's like creating art. This is art. It's like creating a portrait of a not a portrait. I'm sorry. It's like creating a picture of a scenery. Okay, for just to hang on the wall or something like that. But we got it here in 3D. So that's the whole idea of creating the backdrops to go part of the rest of your scenery in the middle to make it look like one whole big world. Okay, and it works. Okay, now for the ground, when I created the ground, I used Milkshape. Okay, and Milkshape, I drew out a in my paint program, which I use paint.net. I drew out a template of a square, and one side of the square I kind of made curvy lines. Okay, and then I go into Milkshape on the top view. I right click on that and where it says choose background. I clicked on that, choose background, navigate to where I saved that template at, and then import it into Milkshape, and I have a template flat on the ground to where I can trace with vertexes. If you look on the tool, on the hierarchy of the right of Milkshape, you'll see a tab that says vertexes, and vertexes is just little dots. You trace that template, okay, with those vertexes all around. Okay, you can put whatever how many you want. Just remember, if you put a lot of them there, it's just going to take longer to make the faces for that plane. So we're actually making an odd shape looking plane. So you're going to click, after that you're going to click on face, and then you're just going to connect the dots. Click on each dot to create a face, and until you get the whole thing filled in to create one big uh, plane. Okay, so after I did that, I took it, I selected all, and then I extrude it down a little bit. I extrude it down to make it kind of give it that depth right here. Okay, and I did the same thing for the lake. Now the lake is actually I connected the two together when I exported it and then imported it in the movie. So it all comes out one big piece. But the lake is only like half. Now you can't see the because I did a good job. Whoops, because I did a good job of connecting them together with keyframes. So you can't see the seams where the two are actually connected together because this is one part and then this one part. Now I didn't make them that long, so I had to put two of them back to back. Now you can see that scene right there. So you just can't see the middle scene. So that's how I made the land, the ground for this set in Milkshape. Okay. Now for the trees, in the ground I exported it uh, as FBX. Okay. The reason why I use a lot of the reason why I use a lot of FBX formats because it doesn't put any strain on Movie Zoo. So practically everything of all nature, all the trees, the ground, and that is all FBX. The only parts that are different are going to be my props. Those are basically ASE props because they have textures. Okay, so yeah, this was made with a lot of planes put together, different curved shaped planes and stuff like that. But anyway, so the trees, like this tree here, I just basically made the tree with a cylinder in Milkshape. I just grabbed each line of vertices one by one, and I on the top view, I kind of scaled them a little bit closer together, and I worked my way up to the top to where it's pointing. Okay, and then I did the same thing with more cylinders and added them along to it, and did the same thing. Now the leaves are made out of blocks. I just grabbed one. I just grabbed one side of the blocks, the vertexes, and I just scaled them to where those vertexes touch and stretched them up a little bit to make that triangle shape. So that's how I made the leaves on those. So I know these trees. There's a lot of people use the same method I just kind of followed their method and created those. So yeah, so that's how those trees are made. Those pine trees. Okay, now these are different types of pine trees. For my, I forget what kind they were called. But the way I did that, pretty much again, I made a cylinder, okay, and gave it an odd shape. But I didn't really worry about making it pointy because the cylinder stops right about here and it's still flat on the top. What I done was I created a star-looking shape plane using the vertexes and faces, and I grabbed that center vertex in milk shape and I just moved it up, stretching it out to make it a comb shape. Okay, and then I gave it a green color. Whoops, let me undo that. Didn't mean to do that. I didn't know I didn't have that locked. Okay, so I gave it a green color, and I started off bottom. I kind of scaled it wide and placed it right on the center top, right on the center of that, at the bottom, starting from the bottom, right in the center of that cylinder. Duplicate it, shrunk it down a little bit more, kind of rotate it a little bit so the leaves doesn't match up. You want the leaves kind of like here and there, you know what I mean. So I did it again. I duplicated, moved it up, shrunk it down, spit it around, and I kept, let me lock that. And I kept repeating the process until I got to the very top. Okay, and that's how I made those trees. Now, I made one, two, three different types, and I kind of like put them together, and I exported them and imported them into MovieZoo with those three together. So that way it would be one object. And I did it that way so I wouldn't have to repeat myself laying one tree after another, taking a long process of adding all of these trees. So you're doing them in groups like that when you export them really helps. And they're low poly, so they don't take up a lot of memory or doesn't slow anything down. So that is another method I use when I create my props. The tents, I will have to explain how to do those in another tutorial. Okay, so that's how I created my scenes. Okay, that's how I created my scene. Okay, now that's done. Now I'm going to explain to you how I animated, uh, how I put my animations together, how I do my acting, and so forth. So, alright, if you've seen it, see, one, two, three. Okay, that works. Let me stretch this back so I can explain to you how I did it. Okay, let me move up a little bit. Okay, now if you've seen the first part of Camping with Bigfoot, and you may not believe this, but that whole entire video I made with one timeline. I didn't use different sets or anything like that. I created everything with this timeline, all of starting from all the way to the beginning to where he's backing the camper into the camp spot to where they're putting they're putting their camp together all the way up to at night, and I had to change the daylight from daylight to nighttime, all the way up to the part to where they're telling their stories. Okay, I did all that with one timeline, and the way I did it was I would create. Let's see. I would start off with my first character. Now let's pretend like this is at the very beginning of the timeline. Okay, and I started my acting. Okay, the first character would start talking. So I'll import his audio clip and then use the dialogue and then go to direct. When you go to direct, you don't have to do anything. It automatically adds it in there. You just kind of like click on the toolbar, open up your timeline again, and go all the way to where it's at, grab it, and then move it into position. Okay, that's Yeah, that's the way it does me. But anyway, after I add my video clip, I start my timeline at the beginning of that video clip. And then I'll follow to the end of that video clip, and I'll move my timeline slider right there at the end of that clip. If you notice, I got all this made. Okay, so we're going to move that to the end of that audio clip. Okay, with all of its actions and the audio clip already in place, all I have to do was render this part here, make this part, this video right here. Okay, and then once I get that part done, I'll move to the next audio clip. Okay, and I'll move that to the end of that audio clip. Then I'll go back to the beginning and move this to the beginning of that audio clip. Okay, and then I will render that video clip for that part. And again, for the last part, I'll move it to the end of that audio clip, grab the beginning, and move it to the beginning of that audio clip. Let's move that back. Whoops. Move that back. And then I'll render that video clip. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, well, what about the cameras? Okay. Now you can do different camera cuts if you want, but me, I usually try to use one camera cut to film everything. I'll just, whenever I get to a part that I need to take, I just move the camera around. And this camera right here is camera 3. So it's that camera. So I will basically just move my camera around to where I need it. So I'm actually using one camera cut for those parts of the scene. The reason why I do that is so you don't have too many cameras in your scene. Believe it or not, cameras, if you have your, just say, let me show you. Okay, if I open up the window, and I got all these cameras open, so they actually turn those cameras on. And if I, let me see, that camera, I have one camera that's, there we go. So it moves slow, but if I close that and click off the camera, and I'll click back on the camera, because the camera's not turned on and it doesn't move slow. Okay, so I try to steer, I mean, it's okay. I usually use a max of 5 cameras. I do not use too many cameras at all whenever I'm creating my videos. So that's how I do that. I'll just try to use the same camera cut as much as possible and that. So until I get to the next camera that I want to use, then I'll do pretty much the same thing. Hold on. I'll pretty much do the same thing. And that was a short clip there. But still, I use the same camera cut for other things for that. So yeah, so whenever you're dividing those up into different parts like that, okay, it doesn't make that one scene too long. So if you happen to render or make that whole video this long like that without splitting them up, a lot of times whenever you're importing your videos into your video editor to put them all together, it's gonna tell you like HitFilm does. If I do it that long, HitFilm will tell me it does not recognize or support the video file. That's because when you make them that long, MovieZoo recognizes it as a different type of video format, so it'll decode it to that format. So we don't want that. So to save you the trouble from doing that, do it this way. But if you do want to do it that way, there is a video file converter that you can use. And let me show you let me show you that video file converter that I'm telling you about. So right here, you have to excuse my phone, my finger pistol ringer is going off. This is called Converter Lite, okay? And this is what I use whenever I have to do that. If I have to make my videos in a long shot or long take. So I'll do that. Let me show you how it works. So we'll go to the file that we want to, or the video file that we want to decode. Okay, and I'm going to pretend like this is one of them. Just drag it into there. Okay, like so. And then we'll find the format that you want to use. And you have different types of formats that you're going to, even for Android devices and stuff like that. But there's two types I normally use. There's two files formats that I use as AVI and MP4. Okay, those are the two that I use. And it also does audio files as well. So I'll click on the format that I want to use, and then I'll click on I usually use 1920 to 1080. I'll click on that and then go to next, and then I'll convert it. And it'll convert it to the file where the original one is stored. So you have to remember that. And this is completely free, and I will add a link in the description to this file where you can go to the website and download it. It's absolutely free of charge. Okay. So with that said, that's pretty much it. Oh, and if you also do it long ways like that, if you make that all one clip, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it will probably distort the colors and sometimes get a little mixed up and pixelated. So it may not ever happen to you, but just in case, it never hurts to be safe. So, and it doesn't do it all the time, but again, if it does, you don't want to have to go back and do all that over again. And remember to save your progress as you go. That way, whenever you want to save anything, you'll be able to go back to where you left off. Anyway, that's pretty much it. That's how I usually do things whenever I render my animations, whenever I make my video clips. That's how I do it. I'll go ahead and act everything out, do the whole show with one timeline. Then I'll go down the line and then I'll split it up into different parts. That way I don't have to go back and act one after another, act one after another. Just go ahead and do it all. Okay? And then just limit your cameras and try to use one camera for different just try to use one camera cut for different parts of each scene. That way you don't have to keep doing different camera cuts here and there. So, because it basically works the same, but yeah, I think it's a lot better when you do that. Well, that's pretty much it, and I hope y'all really enjoyed this video. I hope you was able to understand what I'm trying to tell you with everything. If you enjoy my tutorials and my videos, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Okay, and don't forget to click the bell. That way you will be able to get notifications whenever I upload a new video or tutorial. Well, that's pretty much it. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and y'all have a blessed day.